I'd like to introduce the wonderful Sevan Bomar. Sevan, thank you for joining us.
It's an amazing time to be here, Giselle. Thank you to all of the family. What is fulfillment, right? Like fulfillment is when you're, 80, 90, if you make it to that age and you're sitting there and you're like, you know what, man, I really, really got the t-shirt on life. I really got the t-shirt on earth. I'm ready for whatever this next level of experience has for me, but I really feel like that I got what I needed from earth. And to me, and from the experience that I just had in this last however long, 80 years, right? And to me, that's what fulfillment ties into. It ties into having that contentment to when you feel like, okay, whatever is done is already done. And so, what I'm going to talk about briefly today is how to tap into that fulfillment and how to make sure that you don't miss it. And I feel like a big part of that is first, in my laws, I call it law number zero. Now, why start at zero? Because, see, a lot of times when we think about, okay, I'm going to start numbering something, we just kind of skip zero and we go one, two, three, four, five. And I think this is the first part of the spiritual consciousness of the psyche or whatever you want to call it that really kind of gets off on the wrong foot because we forget the zero. And I won't say that I learned all these steps exactly in order. Obviously, life is not that way. We have experiences and they're in just random order that we call our path, right? And no one's on the same path, but all paths lead to the same place. And it means, it says path because it's not just one step, right? It's multiple steps down the path. So on that path, I find that that 0 point is something that we always have to remember. We have to remember that we literally started, and I say this, the supreme being lives between the space of living and dying, meaning the supreme being, again, it exists between the space of living and dying. So this means to me that's what the zero is. It's this space where there's no time, there's no beginning, there's no end, and there's just this infinitude. And that's where you are, that's where you're from, and that's where you'll always be. And it literally works like that. So sometimes through all this, when you're starting to teach knowledge and we're starting to give information, and you feel the flux of everything that takes place, the actions and reactions from your words and from your actions, it's important to always remember once again that we start at zero and that we have everything within ourselves and we're completely fulfilled. And with armed with that, then you'll be able to go out and you realize that, you know what, as long as I'm doing my best, then there is no time, there is no requirements. And what remains again is you just doing your best. Because when I say there's no requirements, a lot of people think, well, I need to learn this and I need to go and learn that. And true, you're going to need to arm yourself with different techniques, but you can't get into your Zen moment if you're feeling like you're running out of time or you're feeling like someone expects something from you. How can we expect something from something that's already everything and nothing? So just remember, your 0 point is there as your refuge. I call it the all knowing state. Again, it's the Zen or zone point that many need to reach to tap into their true potential. So it's about feeling comfortable in that zone so that way we can see the best of you. And when I say we can see the best of you, I feel like people will never see the best of me unless I get into that zone, unless I get into that moment, unless I'm able to completely relax and show you who I am. And a big part of that is obviously not having judgments. And I'll say something about this. See, I put this in a numerical order for us to all understand more about the stages, again, and stages of the archetypes. Okay. And I like to use numbers because numbers really are archetypes. They're not only symbols, we should see them as symbols, they're also, they embody many strong concepts. But this is not about saying which number is better than the other. If we start doing that, then we'll get out of the whole sync of the balance between understanding or understanding the stages that we all experience. So there's that zero stage, right? And then it requires you to learn about how you can begin to neutralize negativity, right? So this is when negative comments and things don't disrupt you from the path because you're already fulfilled. So you come in not expecting anything. That's what the zero is really about to me. It says nothing is everything. So when you come in this, if you have expectations from people, and then you start seeing negative YouTube comments and seeing things like that, you may start questioning yourself. Am I really giving out what I should be giving out? Or are people ready for my experience? Remember, this is all about you. Keep everything powered inside of you, which we'll talk about in just a moment with some of the archetypes. But most importantly, remember when you're in that all knowing state, that also means that nothing expects nothing and thus has everything, has no limitations. And then that keeps you from reacting when, let's say, quote unquote, negative things start to happen because you learn how to use that negativity. And so this brings us to the number one. And the poem with number one is the only thing that you need is you. And that's more than enough because you are everything. I'll say that again. Everything that you need is you, and you are everything. And this is very important because a lot of times we feel like, okay, well, I need some computers, and I need 5 or 10 people to work with, and I need better graphics, and I need someone who can do a website, and I can need. And true enough, for your agenda or your endeavor that you may be embarking on, you may need to fulfill those things. However, always remember that inside of you that you contain everything and you're more than enough, and everything that you're doing from here is just extra credit, more space credits for more of a legacy, for more of a streak that you leave across the sky where no one forgets you because you live through the things that you've actually created. So we coined this term called understanding. And what understanding means is obviously standing within. I always say that before you look out for everything else, you should look out for number one. Look out for yourself, get yourself activated, get yourself together mentally, physically, spiritually, get your balance together. And the reason that that's so important is because it's not selfish. The better you are, the better that you can do for everyone else. And so, understanding is about getting that one central character in the theme, which is you, together and ready to go and fully express your character. So, the thing is also remember that one means focus, right? So information is endless, truly, it's like phi, and and purpose is focused. Okay, this means that you need to have it mapped out. And you can always do this. This is what your meditative spaces are really for, is to actually, the meditative spaces when you're building energy is just about building energy. And then when you come into the manifestation space, that's when it's time for you to start visualizing what are the pieces that put together this vision that you have. So it's important to still remember you can begin to navigate through these waters, and then you can begin to focus directly on where you're going. And then in those waters you can also be a refuge to many people who haven't found that kind of foundation. Okay, and foundation is actually an archetypical number, but this foundation also has a lot to do with that. If you're stable, if you have focus, then you can also assist others in starting to become more stable and having focus because they'll witness what you're doing. They'll see that you're getting things accomplished, but they'll also see the steps and procedures that are necessary to get those things accomplished. So you'll become the true living example. And this actually moves us to number two, propelled by our combustuous new, which is a new word, combustuous journey to self. Because see, there's a thing that goes on with two, and many people call that duality. But we've already solved duality by learning all is self. Remember, we're moving from the zero. So I love the term all is self because this means that everything that we're encountering on this adventure that we're on that we find to be unique. Sometimes unique means, oh, I'm afraid of it. Sometimes unique means, oh, I don't like that. And we have to come to terms with that. But that coming to terms is to come to realize that everything is actually you. And that's what actually powers this journey through the number two. That's what actually creates the combustion of duality, which we call energy in this world. So we're realizing, again, that also being everything is kind of tough. If we really think about it, it's one of those things that this life, this experience, since we were already in the all knowing and already remain there, that means this whole experience. And sometimes when we find the tribulations coming, we find even the excitements are paired with pain and all those different things. That path to everything is indeed tough, but hey, that's you. So we ask not only ourselves, but we also ask others if they choose to lose the judgments that you're basically only wasting time. Two is a dualistic number. That's how it creates itself. We see day because we know night. We see blue because we know red. We see everything as opposites, right? But the truth is that this is really, really key to us getting to another level in this uniqueness, is us experiencing everything as different things. But if we start to judge it, then we stop understanding it. The moment that we think we fully define something, the moment we've not allowed it the ability to show us who it truly is, and more correctly, who we truly are. So just remember, this whole dualistic component of the number two is actually here to power you to getting more into realizing who you are. And that brings us into number three. And I say number three, as my poem is, it's all energy. And that means there is no real scarcity, because in the world, there's this false idea of scarcity. There's this false idea that it's running out. Oh, money is running out. Oh, gas is running out. Water is running out. Air is running out. But the true thing is that none of that is actually true. I've gone on hundreds of journeys to prove that to myself. But the interesting thing about it is that because all is energy, which they'll tell you, they say that, in science, they say it in physics, it's all energy. But that means then that there is actually no scarcity in energy. And this is a big thing, because when you look at what's around you, from the wind, every power, you're a power. There's also the wind, there's the water. All of those forces are harnessed for energy. And so the thing is that we're living in a reality that's just beginning to discover, or just beginning to even have the ability to begin to use those energies. And because that's happening, meaning to think those energies are primary, to leave a small footprint, right? But this also means consciously to think that same thing is happening. We're just realizing how many powers and how many forces are actually within us, and how those can infinitely power us through this process of realization that there is actually more energy than you think. And actually, the real thing is how much energy can you even hold? So you could move out of the whole idea of scarcity. And that's why I like the number three, because if you turn it around, it's the number or letter E. And the letter E, of course, is the first word in energy. The letter E has the three on it because it's the three prong, and all the different connections with that powerful number, right? And so then we come into what I say is the number four. Oh, before I leave, number three is also to remember, I like to triangulate my body in mentally, spiritually, physically, or mind, body, and soul. Right? So, a big technique of three and being a conscious creator is that if you can't get over something physically, then maybe you can try mentally. Maybe you can try spiritually. If you can't get over something spiritually, maybe you can try physically. Maybe you can try mentally. Maybe you could accomplish it through one of the other angles that it may be weaker in. And so, what I mean by that is we face these obstacles sometimes in life, and we can keep hitting those obstacles head on with the same technique, or we can see how we actually have a triplicity at least to our character. And when we oscillate through those archetypes, mentally, spiritually, or physically, we may find ourselves being able to remove barriers that wouldn't be otherwise possible to remove. And so that brings us again to the next level of this, which is I call this number four. This is the stability of the square. And Earth was known for a while as a square, but in a metaphoric term, not in the way that we see it now, but that's why you have four winds. You have the four corners, you have these four elements, you have many different things that correspond to the number four, the four forces, right? And this just means that the four, the square, is the anchor in the chasm, meaning that all of this, everything that we're in, this pure energy field, there has to be something that keeps those who want to grow into the experience stable. Right? So, this anchor in the chasm is symbolic to the number four. So, this also requires that you remember to stay grounded. In this, there is a high potential for us to just fly off. Like many people, they want to be on another planet, they want to be hanging out with some aliens. Well, the aliens are here. The planets are here, meaning the humans are here. Those are the planets, the aliens, all the different life forms that exist here that we're yet to get familiar with. They're all here. Staying grounded means making everything central to the space that you're in, because as above, so below, truly, you will see the connection between everything here. But if you're looking for it out there, mainly outside of yourself, then you'll be chasing it for a long time and you may never find it. Go back within, look at the space around you, study the environment around you for everything that you seek. So I'll go into the number five, and this is kind of a word number pun. I say tend your own fire, meaning tend or take care of your own fire, or tend your own five. Okay. Now these numbers again are so symbolic. And they hit right on to what we need to be doing. It's already been put there for us. And what I say is, phi is the fire of the passion, right? Phi is phi. Phi is flesh. That's what the number means. And so this phi-based creation that we're living in, it runs on the combustion of fire versus wind versus water, right? But that actually is all taking place in you. So if for some reason you begin to go externally to find where your passions are, your love is, etc., then you'll find yourself maybe becoming disempowered or less motivated when the external forces that you've been depending on don't please you the way you want to be pleased. So the key for that is to start to please yourself, tend your own fire, remember yourself in all this, take care of self, because that allows you to be available for others. So what I want to, remember, this is only 7. I'm moving through this because I want to have some time for questions. I know there's many people in the audience that may be a part of the Secret Energy platform or may have heard the message on YouTube or something and may have some questions. So I want to leave some time for that because, as everyone knows, I've done tons of talking and tons of sharing. So it's all about you this time. And so my next thing is getting to the number 6. Now, 6 is the co-creation number, and people know how I feel about 6, but this may be some censored channels, so I'll let those go to the videos of understanding how 6 is sex. But the truth is that we co-create together. And we birth things from our co-creation. And if you can see those two interlacing triangles coming together, what's often missed is what comes forth from in between. Like, what is the birth from that? And so when you find those connections in the reality, those triangulations, those tri-merges of co-creation networks, that means people who have stabilized themselves and then they now link with you, right? This is, I believe, called interdependency, right? And those are the connections that you can make with others that actually birth magnificent things. And this brings us to the 7th law. And that, to me, is the law of what the 7 embodies, meaning that it can't be divided into the number 0. The spectrum of light that you are created with, from, you created yourself through, cannot be divided into the circle. So thus it can't be divided into time. And this is a big thing because that means that you are truly limitless. You not only have this space, you also have the dream space, you have the astral plane, you have so many worlds of power to begin to access. So a big part of this is actually you discovering those worlds within and then also realizing how to share that connection with those without. And a good way to end this part and then begin the questions is just to say, so what is it to be truly a conscious creator? It is to do something like this 2 hours or 3 hours ago in a coffee shop. That I wanted to make this message so unique and so synchronistic to the day that it was to be shared that I decided, with all the pressure that could sometimes come with getting something together in the last moment, I decided that I will put most of it together today. And that's also what the conscious creation is about tapping into who you truly are, knowing that, yeah, you're always going to be nervous. There's always going to be butterflies in your stomach. That's just normal. That's all a part of the physical body. But when it's time to deliver, you can channel that being that you always are and that you always have been.